It's 5:45, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. If everyone would stand for a moment of silence in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Okay. Chairman Floyd. Vice Chair Harrison.
Present.
Deborah Thomas.
Present.
Jeremy Burnett.
Present.
Michelle Childs.
Present.
And Superintendent Horrell.
Present.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Chairman Floyd had a work conflict, so he may be joining us late, or he may not be able to get on at all. So just to let everybody know why Chairman Floyd is not leading the meeting, I'll be leading the meeting in his place. The agenda has been published to the website, and as a reminder, due to COVID-19, we are meeting electronically, and that the link will be posted at our website following the meeting. Is there anything else I need to cover regarding the COVID situation and why we are meeting electronically? Are there any questions about that or concerns? Hearing none, I will move to public comment. During this time, we have asked Superintendent Horrell to take comments or emails or communications, however we want to say it, from the public and read those at the meeting. Have we received any communication from the public that we need to make sure we read at the meeting?
I have not.
Okay. All right, Mr. Superintendent, will you lead us through the agenda, the rest of the agenda?
I will. First is our report section, starting with the chairman's welcome. He is not here to welcome us. Vice Chair, I'd give you the opportunity if you'd like to say anything.
Just welcome everybody to our June meeting and appreciate everybody's patience as we, try to get through these unprecedented times and still carry on the business of education. So just thank everybody for their patience and everything we're trying to do. And that's all I have.
Absolutely. All right. Next is the TLN representative update. Ms. Childs.
Hi. Okay. So the legislatures had resumed, and at this point, the updates are SB 2546/HB 2139, which was a recalling school board members for any reason. And that was because Madison County wanted it, and then it got changed to try to be statewide. But that is dead now by the Senate Education Committee. Also, the Senate did not consider the governor's literacy bill, so that will not happen. And the biggest update is that the Supreme Court declined to hear the voucher appeal bill. And so that case will go to the trial court. So now it's been decided that it will not launch in fall of 2020. It's been delayed until 2021. There is still some money in the budget for it currently. I don't know if or not. But the other big news is that the budget is being reduced due to the decreased revenue with COVID-19. State agencies are being asked to present budgets with a 12% reduction. Regarding education, it reduces or eliminates cost increase that had been included in the year's original budget. So there was supposed to be, for example, a $58 million increase to the BEP salary component. And so the increase that was supposed to happen is no longer going to happen. Also, there was supposed to be $22 million in the voucher budget, and that's no longer in there. However, I'm not sure the exact amount. I couldn't find the exact number, but there is still some money at this point for the voucher program. So they're not completely finished with budgets. So we'll just have to see what that looks like when the legislature is completely adjourned for the year. Also, just to make a note, the State Board of Education did issue 3 waivers, and those 3 waivers are to that school districts they're waiving school districts notifying teachers within 5 business days if the contract will be renewed for the succeeding year. They're also waiving evaluations regarding tenure, the 2 years of probationary period. And the last waiver is requiring school boards to participate in annual training.
Right.
I think that's all I have right this moment. So,
okay. I have a question, but I'll let anybody else.
Sorry, I missed that.
No, I'm sorry. I have a question, but I was going to see if anybody else had any questions before I asked you mine. Anybody have any questions for the DLN rep? The waiver you said for the training, is that for 2021 or is that for 1920 for the state or for the annual training? Do you happen to know?
I believe it's for, the email that they sent did not specify that.
I believe it was 1920. All three of those were for 1920.
But
okay.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear. Okay. That's the only question I had.
All right. If we're ready to move on to the next section, we can go to the superintendent's report. I do have a few things I want to share on this June day. I want to acknowledge the number one question on everybody's minds, and that is what will school look like when we get back. And if you thought you were going to come to this meeting or listen to this meeting and get the answer, you will be disappointed because we don't have the answer to that. What I can tell you is that we're continuing to work. We're continuing to prepare for a number of scenarios. One thing we did, I think, significantly today, we've been working in concert with the other municipal superintendents to try to share resources, share ideas, brainstorm together, and we did collaborate to a certain degree on a parent survey to try to get some feedback on kind of primarily where are parents right now in terms of what their preference is, because in certain scenarios, it wouldn't matter what we did if parents weren't interested in that. So for example, if we planned on maximum capacity in the buildings, but we don't have interest potentially from parents in being physically, or their children being physically in the buildings, that changes how you plan slightly. I'm happy to say we launched that around noon today, and we've already had 508 responses as of a few minutes just before this meeting, which is, I can tell you from doing prior surveys, is a significant number. That's it's not quite a third wouldn't represent quite a third of our parents, but sorry, it would represent just under about a third of our students. 508 would. So that I'm sure will give us some good data. Our goal is to get the kids back in the building, to get all the kids back in the building every day. That's where we want to be. Obviously, we're taking the information from the health department and local leaders very seriously, and we're going to weigh all those things together. So in some cases, it'll come down to what we are allowed to do. But the main focus right now is trying to figure out if we were all able to go back into the building, but we were going to have recommended distancing of 6 feet between students and try to limit circulation to the extent that we could, what would that look like and what might the day look like? So, some of the things we think about is how do teachers go to the students instead of students moving? But we're also aware that when students leave school, in many cases, they are mingling with other students, and those things are happening outside of school. So, to the extent that we can, we're trying to be both practical, but also extremely, extremely responsible. And I think everybody certainly on the board knows, and probably in the community knows too, we're going to err on the side of safety when we feel like we need to. So it is a moving target, and we're constantly getting more information. I'd say for the most part, most of the information we get is encouraging in terms of what school might look like in the fall, but we've got to be prepared for situations if there is a turn of bad news. So again, I haven't answered the question of what it'll look like, but we do know that folks need to know. I can say right now, we have not seriously been talking about any changes to the instructional calendar. That's not something that's really come up. Obviously, everything's on the table when it comes to student safety, and if it's determined that that is the best thing to do. But I think there'd have to be a pretty significant change in the status quo before we started talking about a change to the calendar like some of the colleges have done. And I think it makes more sense to some of the colleges where it's more of a campus style and the kids are staying there, but that's not something we've discussed. We are doing some concrete things just to be prepared. We have now installed plexiglass at the reception areas for that extra level of protection because that's the area where we'll have most visitors. It's possible that we won't allow visitors, at least for a certain time, past the reception area, but again, that's all open to whatever is going on at the time and what the recommendations are. We are currently installing new hand sanitizing stations in every classroom. So there will be foam hand sanitizer available for all students all day. As the board knows, we've purchased and have received the Chromebooks, the additional Chromebooks that would be necessary to go complete remote learning. We have purchased a large number of thermal thermometers, over 100 of those. So if we wanted to have teachers able to do temperature checks at the classroom level or at arrival, those are available. I'll get ahead of myself a little bit. Our coaches have already begun using the ones that we have for the conditioning that is happening now, and I'll talk a little bit about athletic conditioning in just a moment. We've purchased a supply of washable masks for faculty or students that don't have them. If we are in a situation where students are asked to wear masks or faculty wear masks, we want to make sure we've got them available. If people don't have them or forget them, or it may be the 2020 equivalent of I forgot my pencil and the teacher comes up with a pencil. But again, I don't want anybody to hear me say we've decided everybody's wearing masks. We want to be prepared for whatever situation it is. And if we got boxes of masks that nobody winds up using, I think everybody would be just thrilled about that. But that is one of the things that I feel like it may be kind of probably even a best case scenario with the timing that the students and teachers that are old enough for that to be appropriate would be in masks, but we'll see. We have ordered some clear plastic face masks for nurses who would need to get up closer to students potentially and in an examination, kind of if somebody's injured or something, to make sure that we've got a double level layer of protection there. And also for our high needs special education classrooms where students may not be capable of observing social distancing in that situation. And that's in addition to ordering bulk hand sanitizer and other disinfecting cleaning agents. So despite the fact that we don't have, the plan, I do want everybody to know we are spending a lot of time and kind of energy to make sure that we're prepared in terms of having the things that we need while we are having conversations about what are the things we need in terms of instructional delivery, and particularly having a lot of conversations about professional development and what might that look like. So expect to make some choices on that, decisions on that pretty soon. I did want to give an update on the land purchase that the board has approved. The executive, yes, I see a question from Mr. Burnett. Go ahead.
Ted, I can wait till the end, but I did have a question in regards to Character Fall.
Sure.
With the additional purchases, those are not normal in our budget. Are you expecting those to come out of CARES Act funding? Are you tracking those in a separate area in case we have some relief from that at a future date?
Yes and yes. Our Ms. Rosales has been assisting us and is flagging those items for CARES Act reimbursement. We have included those items in our CARES Act application that we're working on now. So yes, those things, along with potential professional development and other items, are kind of going to wind up being the bulk. Ms. Thomas, you're on mute, but I know you have a question. There you go. You're off mute. I'm sorry.
Since Mr. Burnett touched on that topic, so a lot of those things have been hard to get, the mask, the sanitizing gel or foam. Do we already have those? Have we already ordered? We've already received idea that we will be able to get them, or what's the situation?
I know we've got the hand sanitizing station because Mr. McCain sent me a picture of the first one installed, or one of the first ones installed. Anyway, I know that the plexiglass has already been installed. The washable masks, those are able to be to come by. So I don't anticipate any issue there. The clear plastic face masks, my understanding is that we'd be able to get those in time. And I think a lot of it's kind of loosened up in terms of hand sanitizer and things. So most of it so far that I'm aware, we haven't had any issues. We got the first set of thermometers in hand when they were still restricting to how many you can order. My understanding is the supply of that has loosened up now, and those are not in hand, the bulk ones, the over 100 we ordered, but we are tracking. We feel good that we'll be able to get those in time.
And then the sanitizer, the room, we ordered that as well, right? Like the fog or the mister, did we order that?
Yes, the Clorox 360. Yeah. We did get only one of those, and we're hoping to get the other one. They had to prioritize for hospitals and doctors' offices, and I'm hoping we get the second one of those.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Burnett. Yeah.
And one follow-up question, just because I got to thinking about it when I saw the SBA update last week. Do you anticipate any policies that we need to consider by fall? Or are you still so early in sort of that planning that you're not sure yet?
There are a few that we've discussed that we're requesting waivers from the state on. I'm not aware at this time of any school-specific policies, but fortunately, a lot of that's kind of statewide conversation. So I believe it's probable that we'd be asking the school board to make some policy changes, but I don't have any targeted right now.
Okay, thank you. I'll be quiet for a minute.
No, please. These are great questions. Anything else before we kind of move on? I was going to talk about the land purchase situation a little bit. So what we found is that the seller of the land would like to have some conversations with us about ways that the actual boundaries of the land that we have requested to purchase initially, which was mainly just from looking at a map and looking at the roads and saying what works for us. They'd like to pursue some conversations about ways that might better suit their development and also, to possibly help our situation as well. I mean, they obviously have goals to develop a subdivision in the area surrounding the land we're interested in, and that is not uncommon that a developer would work with, a school system trying to buy a purchase of land. It certainly happened with Lakeland Elementary School and the Oakwood subdivision. So, long story short, we don't have an accepted offer at this point, but both sides do want to work towards a successful offer. So that's kind of where we are now. I know that from a meeting that it may be another 2 weeks or so before we can get some of the data that we need in terms of the topographical data that we would need to feel good about what we'd like to do. So again, it's not bad news. It's just kind of taking a little longer. Fortunately, there's not a clock ticking on this land purchase. I think, as everybody understands, it's not like when we bought the middle school land or the land for the middle and high school, and certainly what we're doing right now, even with the athletic fields where we do have a clock ticking. That's not our situation. So we've got the luxury of being able to spend a little extra time and due diligence, even if that means at the end we don't come up with a deal. We want to make sure it's the right deal for us, and the seller wants to make sure it works for them as well. Speaking of Lakeland Prep, the construction documents are complete. They are out for bid. They are being reviewed by regulatory agencies like Shelby County Code and the Fire Marshal and the City of Lakeland. And we are working with our contractor, Chris Woods Construction, and hope to receive a guaranteed maximum price in the next week and a half or so. So we are, again, just continuing to march towards the construction of the building. Fortunately, there's not anywhere that we're seeing that coronavirus has impacted that. I am told that we are getting a healthy number of responses from subcontractors, which is to our benefit, obviously, as the competition is good for prices. So stay tuned on that. I alluded to it earlier, but I wanted to give everybody kind of an update on where we are at the school in terms of activities that are happening. We have gotten specific guidance on recreational sports both from the Shelby County Health Department, and we also have some recommendations from the National Federation of High Schools and from TSSAA. In that case, more guidance, but because a lot of what we're doing is outside or in small groups, we felt confident moving forward with some of the athletic conditioning that would happen. It looks different. It's not what we'd love it to be, but just to give everybody an idea. So the girls and boys basketball coaches are holding open gym in the month of June on various days throughout the month prior to the dead period. And the dead period is the point at the end of June and start of July. For cheerleading, virtual tryouts are being held in June. Practices will start at Memphis Pride in June at their facility. For our fall sports, girls soccer, volleyball, football, and cross country all begin after the dead period, following all the guidelines set forth for athletics. We may be in phase 3 by then. Hopefully we will, but if not, we will continue to follow phase 2 guidelines for those sports. So just so everybody knows, that's what we would typically do anyway. Those last sports I mentioned anyway, they really haven't been adjusted. I think we might have gotten a week or so kind of late start on the basketball open gyms, but not really anything that would impact us, except that the groups are smaller. You can only have groups of 10 for the open gyms, and we do have regulations in place. But it's a good opportunity to kind of test out some of those guidelines right now. That none of that changes, just to be clear. Any of the canceled camps or indoor events or other things that we've got normally, we're just not comfortable kind of trying to reinstate those, particularly on a short notice. Are there any questions about any of those items?
I do have one. So has there been discussion on, or from, I know TSSAA, or any guidance on whether they think there will be able to be competitions held for the fall sports? Because I know I get the player side of it, that they have, there would be some contact there, but I know there's concerns also about the spectators of those in the size groups. Has there been any information that anybody has? I know it's 2 months out, but 2 months out is still got a lot of planning to do to have an August event. So I just wanted to know if we had gotten any guidance on what, if any of those potentially were delayed, or, anything related to how the fall looks for being able to maintain or have events like that for sports and such.
So that's a great question. The thing that makes it very complicated, obviously, and this is in a lot of areas, is that every county is different, and every situation. Obviously, the Tennessee's a big long state, and our situation here in Shelby County is very different from what it might be up in the mountains of Bristol, or in the easternmost side of the state. So most of the guidance that we've gotten has said that if outdoor events are allowed with certain parameters by your local health department, then that would be our category. That would be what we follow. So we're all watching the phased opening, pretty carefully. It could be that there are parts of Tennessee where there's almost no spread and there's no, very few cases, and they may say, if y'all want to get up in the bleachers and hang out and, eat hot dogs, you can do it. And that might not be what we're able to do based on our own guidelines. So that's another long way of saying we're just going to have to keep watching and see where we are. Unfortunately, our area is considered a hot spot. Probably no surprise. It's a more densely populated area of Tennessee. So what has been clear is that local decisions are what are going to determine what that looks like. And that'll include probably the influence of our municipal mayors and, Shelby County mayor and Shelby County Health Department and those things. So,
I believe
there's not been clear guidance.
I think at some point we had a discussion that there was a task force potentially that was going to be implemented to look specifically at, like, maybe by TSSAA. Was I remembering that correctly? That they were potentially going to form so that they could make sure we got good communication guidance.
I believe that's you know, time, the concept of time has disappeared during this whole thing, and that sounds very familiar. I don't remember when that was, if that was last week or a month ago. But yes, I believe you're right. I may have even mentioned that.
Yeah, so
I can follow up on that.
I just wasn't sure whether they had decided whether that was a local or regional task force or whether that was a statewide task force that kind of gave us some, and I get it, everybody's different and every county and whatever's different, but to kind of give us some overarching guidance on where we should try to head.
Yes. Yeah. No, I believe that work is happening. I'll try to follow up on that. But we talk as systems, and our local representative to the TSSAA gives us pretty good updates on what's being discussed.
Okay.
I did want to share one more thing, and I did write this out, so I'll share this as the last part of my report. In Lakeland school system, we're obviously aware of the national conversation on race, racism, and the challenges of Black Americans. And as educators, we want to be part of that conversation. It's important to us that the voices of our Black students, parents, and faculty members are heard and acknowledged. And we're very fortunate to have educators in our system, like LES Principal Jaretha Lockhart and our central office instructional facilitator, Kim Lewis, who are not only outstanding Black educators, but among the best educators and people in our system. And I mentioned those two individuals out of several because I've had some conversations with them specifically about these issues, and what has come out of those conversations in terms of how can we be part of this conversation and make sure we're responding to the needs of our students. Kim Lewis has agreed to accept the chairmanship of a new ad hoc committee of Black stakeholders in Lakeland school system to lead the way in making sure we're doing our part as a system to be sure our students and staff are working in an environment where Black voices are heard and racism is not allowed. And Ms. Lewis will be reaching out to individuals in our system over the next few weeks to define the goals of the committee. And the committee, either directly or through me, will report back to the board as necessary. And I want to be clear, we don't want any student in Lakeland school system to be the subject of racism of any kind. But in this moment of national emergency, it's important that our Black voices be elevated and addressed to identify areas where we can do better. And I want to say I appreciate the support of our Board of Education in this work and look forward to continuing to improve the experiences for students and staff in our school system in every way we can, including this work. So wanted to share that with the board, and that concludes my superintendent's report. Are there any further questions or comments?
No.
All right.
Hearing none. No.
Yeah, hearing none. We will move.
Thank you for that.
Yes, very welcome. Thank you to the board for your support. We do have the May financial summary. It is posted to the website. There is, I know I say this frequently, but that's part of what it does. We're tracking it. There's nothing unusual in the May summary. And even some of the areas where even transportation, though we lost 9 weeks of transportation through our contract, we were continuing to pay a certain percentage of it. We do have some funds that are left in transportation, but even probably percentage-wise not as high as you might expect under the circumstances. But everything else is right on track, and we feel good about it. So are there any questions about the financial summary? All right, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Is there anyone that wishes to add or remove anything from the agenda?
I would actually like to request that an item that I added be removed, and that is the item number 2, discussion action on the appointment of the ethics committee. This was really an oversight on my part. We had it on our annual agenda for June, and I kept thinking, didn't we just do that? I felt like we had done that fairly recently, and we did. So we wound up folding that into the standing committee nominations where it makes sense, and we did that in November. And Mr. Burnett and Chairman Floyd and Wesley Wright are the 3 members of the ethics committee. So as such, we can. It's not necessary to do that now. So that's on the annual agenda, corrected now to be clearly that will happen again next November. So that could be removed.
Is there any objection to removing item number 2? discussion action on appointment of ethics committee? Hearing none, item number 2 will be removed. Is there any other items that anyone wishes to add or take away from the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as amended, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved as amended. Next item.
Do we need a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Oh. I don't know that we've ever done that, but sure, we can go through that just to make sure we're on the up and up. Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. So now we can actually move to the vote again so that we could do it correctly. Sorry, I'm not used to leading the online meeting, so it's brand new to me. So all in favor of approving the amended agenda with number 2 removed, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the amended agenda is approved. That's a mouthful.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I think usually we do I think it's the motion to get it on the floor and then the second that I just want to make sure it was in there. Okay. Well, that is all right. There are no items on the consent agenda because we did not have a work session. So without objection, I'll move into the discussion section of the agenda. Beginning with the approval of the minutes, we have the business meeting minutes from May 11th, 2020.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second, the item is appropriately before us. Is there any discussion on the approval of the business meeting minutes from Monday, May 11th? Is that the right date? I think that's the right date. Yes, that's the right date. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the business meeting minutes as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item.
Next item, as we're going to skip item 2 since it was removed from the agenda, is discussion action on approval of the 2020-21 protected reading list.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, that item is appropriately before us. Dr. Horrell, would you present this item, please?
Yes, there are no changes to last year's protected reading list, and because it's kind of a confusing phrase, the protected reading list is basically each grade level in Lakeland school system identifies it's essentially their reading list for that year. The reason they call it a protected list is because it means that other grade level teachers should not teach those particular books, and because they will be taught or expect to be taught by the grade levels noted.
Is there any discussion or questions on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The protected reading list passes. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on update to policy 5.201, separation practices for non-tenured teachers.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Thanks.
All right. The item is appropriately before us. Will you speak to this item, Dr. Horrell?
I will. There's only one change to this item, and this is a change that I'm recommending. There was a part of the policy that says the board shall be notified at the next regular board meeting of all non-renewals, basically. So these are employed non-tenured teachers that are being non-renewed by one of their principals. Upon reviewing that, I couldn't find anything that's in state law that requires it, and I also can't think of any reason that would benefit anyone, frankly, that we would possibly read the names of teachers that had not been had their contracts renewed to teach. So I do obviously believe it's important that the school board be aware of teachers that have been non-renewed. So I'm recommending that the change that follows the following action shall be taken. It will say the superintendent shall notify the board of all non-renewals in writing.
Is there any discussion regarding this update?
Jeremy's hand is raised, I see.
I don't have the grid view, so I apologize.
Yep,
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Dr. Roll, my only question would be on a lot of other policies, and given that I just went through a year and a half of revising promotion and tenure policies in my institution, there's a time frame for everything. Would it be appropriate for us to say the superintendent shall notify within some number of days, just in case there's an appeal or something after the fact?
It is certainly appropriate. I would not object. If anything, it gives me a little wiggle room if I goofed up and didn't let you guys know, within the 10 days or whatever. I would certainly like to think I would do it timely as soon as it happened. But certainly, if we wanted to add that, I would not object to that and would comply.
Jeremy, would you like to make a motion to amend?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to amend to say the superintendent shall notify the board of all non-renewals in writing within 10 business days.
Is there a second to Jeremy's amendment? I'll second Jeremy's amendment. So Jeremy's amendment would have the statement read, superintendent shall notify the board of not all non-renewals in writing within 10 business days. Did I get that correct, Jeremy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we are voting only on the amendment, not the complete change to the policy. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Hearing none, the amendment passes. Now we're back on the main motion of the policy change itself with the amendment. Is there any further discussion about the policy change with the amended business day, to say the business day requirements as well? Is there any discussion on the change to the policy? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the policy is approved as amended. Next item.
Terrific. And by the way, I think that's a very reasonable amount of time, and I appreciate that on that policy. The next item is discussion action on the July meeting schedule.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor? Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and so the item is appropriately before us. I see Michelle Childs. Would you like to speak to this, or Michelle, whichever one of y'all would like to speak to it?
Yes. So my understanding is that beginning in July that we'll be back meeting face-to-face for our school board meetings, and I have a conflict with our meeting on July 13th. So I just wanted to ask if it was possible that we can do a different week.
And calendars are our funnest time to figure out everybody's availability.
I know. And if it's not possible, then I totally understand. But if it could be before July 10th or after, or July 20th or after.
Dr. Horrell, did you happen to discuss with Kevin his availability in July? I know he's not with us. I don't know if he had any available or unavailable times that he had brought forward.
I did not. That would have
okay.
That would have made sense as he.
No problem.
It was kind of late breaking that he wasn't going to be here, so I didn't make that connection to the calendar date.
I personally have a conflict on the 6th, so I know I cannot do the 6th. But is there anybody else that has any conflicts any of the rest of the 20th or the 27th?
Well, can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
I'll just remind, the meetings don't necessarily have to be on Monday. Michelle, I don't know if your conflict is specific to Monday night or if it's that whole week.
It's the whole week.
It's the whole week.
But,
okay,
right. But I mean, I could do, July 7th or 8th or 9th or 20th. Or
would she be able to do like we've done in the past and have remote participation? Would it fall under the policy related to remote participation?
related, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I think it has to be work related, assuming that we're back under the normal guidelines then.
That's my understanding.
We've obviously avoided the 6th and 7th because of Independence Day. Although, again, we could, it wouldn't be unprecedented if we had a meeting, say, the evening of the 9th, if we chose to do that.
Is there anybody that has any other conflicts or concerns, either the first week in July or the third week, I guess, in July? I think if we push it, just in my opinion, if we push it back to the week of even the 27th, we're now running into our August meeting schedule, and even the 20th might be close to our August meeting schedule. So if we can keep it the week of the 13th or the 6th, like late in the week of the 6th, it would be better for timing purposes. Just from my opinion, looking at the calendar, is everybody kind of, I mean, what's availability on the 9th? Is everybody available on the 9th?
Well, if we're meeting in person, is there a commissioners meeting that night?
That's a great point.
Very true.
That's a great point.
Very true.
We should
do what?
I said we
should kick them off. Yeah. So what about the 7th? Is there any significant conflicts to the 7th? I just want to make sure we are going to have quorum as well too, if we're going to actually change the meeting date.
We could do that evening.
I'm pulling up the city calendar, so
yeah.
Hang on 1 second, and I'll see.
Okay.
Also, I don't want to change it if it means someone else can't come because it's my conflict. So, I don't know. Since Kevin's not here, should we? I don't know. Try to email back and forth afterwards because I don't want to leave them out of the discussion. I don't know.
We actually have to vote to change the meeting schedule. So we will not have another meeting between now and then to be able to vote for the change in the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, unless we did a special call meeting.
Right. We could have a special call meeting to vote.
Oh, I'm not going to do. I don't want to do that too. Well, I can't since Kevin's not here.
Sorry. July 9th is scheduled to be the Board of Commissioners meeting.
Okay.
But there doesn't appear to be anything scheduled meeting-wise for the 7th or the 8th.
And generally we avoid that. I forgot about. I'm just thinking back to what you just said, Dr. Hoare. We've avoided the 7th just because of the July 4th holiday that leading into that holiday. And Wednesday nights we typically don't have meetings due to usually that people would have public may have church conflicts or event conflicts. Michelle.
It's fine. I mean, with Kevin not being here, we can't know what if we would get a date for him that would be a conflict for him, and it's my conflict, so it's okay. I can rescind the agenda item.
All right.
Or however that works.
Is there any objection to tabling this item? Hearing none, we will table it per Michelle's request. We will table this item and not vote on this item. Next item.
Yep. Next item is discussion action on the 2021 Consolidated Application Board Approval Form.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
The item is appropriately before us. Dr. Hoare?
All right. This is one of those annual approvals that the consolidated application is our federal funds application, or holds most of our federal dollars. It's a very kind of involved process that Tammy Wilson, our federal programs facilitator, coordinates. This is just one of the required forms that says our board has approved essentially of the budget or of the work we're doing there. You actually approve it through the budget process, sometimes multiple times throughout the year, but it's one of those boxes we've got to check. It is attached, the form itself.
Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on approval of 2021 school nutrition agreements.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Sorry.
We have a motion and a second. The item is appropriately before us. Dr. Horrell.
I hate to call any business that we take care of dry, but this is probably, I don't know, it's equally as exciting as the consolidated application approval. This just has basically the federal funds that come from the USDA for school nutrition. If you click on the link, there are some details in there. And again, I don't want to take away from the importance of it. Jesse Rosales is our nutrition director that's assigned for Shelby County Schools and does a terrific job working with the cafeteria managers. But there are some details in there about what our program looks like. But overall, this is just another form where the board acknowledges kind of the fact that we're responsible for these funds and how they're used.
Any questions or discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
The next and final item is discussion action on approval of superintendent surety bond.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Who made the initial motion? Who made the initial motion, just for Jessica in case? Oh, that was Deborah. Okay, all right, gotcha. All right. So the superintendent's surety bond is another annual requirement per policy and state law. I have to be bonded as the individual ultimately signs off on how funds are used in the system. The surety bond is for $1,256,909. So this is something, again, we do annually, and the board just needs to approve that amount, is what the policy states.
Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
There are no further items on the agenda as approved.
Are there any announcements?
I have one question, and I should have asked it back when we were looking at the financial summary. We had a $700,000 payment to the city by the end of the fiscal year, right? The second of the four, is that correct?
I'd have to review the schedule, but that sounds right.
Okay. I was just wanting to make sure that we were still, on schedule with those.
Let me check and see where that's landing, because we had two. That was kind of, the agreement was front loaded, and there were two. I believe you're right, and the city is supposed to invoice us according to a schedule, but I'll make a note to check that. We want them to invoice us, and we want to pay that and make sure it moves forward. So I'll double check with Jesse on that.
Okay.
Are there any more announcements? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
your patience with me.
You did a fine job.
Absolutely.